नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. A very warm welcome to all of you on day 11 of Srila Prabhupada Leela, Taming the Wild. We discussed yesterday, Srila Prabhupada had an amazing gathering in the Avalon ballroom. Around 5,000 people had assembled. And most of them were on drugs. Still, Srila Prabhupada was very happy that they picked up chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But when Prabhupada was coming out, Prabhupada told, this is no place for us, there is no place for a brahmachari. Next, what kind of challenges Srila Prabhupada encountered and what wonderful mellows were offered to his disciples in San Francisco, let's try to understand today. Some of the Bhaktivedanta Swami's more thoughtful followers in San Francisco felt that certain candidates for initiation did not intend to keep the commitment lifelong. So this initiation is a lifelong commitment. But then those people, we understand that their even head is not stable. So they were concerned that, Prabhupada, how can we allow them to get initiated now here? They would say, Swamiji, some of these people come only for their initiation. We have never seen them before and we never see them again. Swamiji replied that that was the risk he had to take. One day in a lecture in the temple, he explained that although the reactions for a disciple's past sins are removed at initiation, the spiritual master remains responsible until the disciple is delivered from the material world. Therefore, he said, Lord Chaitanya warned that a guru should not accept many disciples. So initiation is a very serious commitment, not just for the disciple. The disciple has taken initiation, does not follow the vows, then there is a great danger for him. And the spiritual master, once he accepts somebody as disciple, he takes charge of his life unless he or she is liberated. He takes away all the sinful activities and the disciple is liberated on initiation day. And after that, the disciple is supposed to keep himself on liberated platform by following very strictly the rules and regulations. So spiritual master instructions are so powerful, which are given as per the capacity of the people. So Prabhupada has given very simple things for us. Chant 16 rounds and follow 4 regulative principles. And this if a person is able to follow very strictly. And of course, to support these things, there is morning program, there is preaching, there is prasadam and everything else, so that it becomes easy. So we have to follow just these things. And if a person is able to chant 16 rounds, follow 4 principles, Srila Prabhupada tells no power in this world can stop you from going back to Godhead. Just see what a boon we have. Hiranyakashipu wanted to become immortal and he did rigorous tapasya for 100 celestial years. And the flesh was eaten away. Only bones remained. Ravana was offering his heads, and so many people have done such great tapasya to become immortal. And we have got the formula to become immortal. So it is not some imagination, but it is a fact. Mrityurma amritam gama. It can be established by simply taking complete shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. But if the disciple commits sins again, spiritual master has to remain in this material world unless he is able to liberate the disciple. So that is why the disciple should be very, very careful not to put his spiritual master to trouble. So Srila Prabhupada told that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has warned, do not accept more disciples, otherwise it is risk for the spiritual master. Spiritual master has to suffer in his body for the sins of the disciples, of course a token amount. That is why Jesus Christ also suffered so much. Why he was crucified? Because he took the sins of his disciples. So a token amount spiritual master suffers so that disciples are cautious. They don't commit sins to put their spiritual master into trouble. But nevertheless, if disciples commit sins, trouble comes to spiritual master. Sometimes there is bad health, sometimes there are bad dreams, and spiritual master remains in material world and he has to wait and put effort unless the disciple is liberated. But very advanced devotees like Srila Prabhupada, they take the risk and they told, does not matter, I have to go to hell for taking the sins. Of course, they cannot go there and they can just completely burn away all the sins, so that the disciples are cautious. They agree to suffer a token amount. So Prabhupada told, I am prepared to take all the risk for preaching mission. So in preaching, preacher is prepared to go to hell if it is required. One night in the temple during the question and answer session, a big bearded fellow raised his hand and asked Swamiji, can I become initiated? The brash public request annoyed some of Swamiji's followers, but Swamiji was serene. So this very nice instance, what are the qualifications required if a person wants to take initiation? So a person suddenly who doesn't look any better than a hippie, he is asking in the middle of session, can I take initiation from you? The Swamiji was serene, although followers were annoyed. Yes, he replied, but first you must answer 2 questions. First question, Swamiji asked, who is Krishna? The boy thought for a moment and said, Krishna is God. Yes, Swamiji replied. Next question he asked, and who are you? Again the boy thought for a few moments and then replied, I am the servant of God. Very good, Swamiji said. Yes, you can be initiated tomorrow. So Srila Prabhupada this example he used to tell his disciples what is required. In Chaitanya Charitamrita it is explained, we are struggling to crack one exam after another, and in competition so many new exams are coming up. Earlier people are satisfied just being graduate, and now after graduation so many other degrees, so many other certifications, entire life person is writing clearing exams. There is no respite. So what to do to solve the problems of life? So it is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Jeev Krishna Das e Vishwas Karle Toar Dukho Nai. Simply if a person can believe that I am Krishna's servant, then there is no more misery in life from that day, because whatever I am supposed to do, I should do for Krishna. And it is simple. Anybody who maintains us, we serve them. Why we are doing our jobs? Because our employer is maintaining us. So now if we analyze who is maintaining all of us, the food that we have, the water that we drink, the planet on which we are living, who is sustaining us? So Krishna is maintaining us. So it is our natural position as a matter of sensibility, obligation, we should try to serve Krishna. So if I simply realize that Krishna is maintaining me, so let me try to serve him. I am servant of Krishna. Such a person is qualified to accept initiation. And otherwise, if this realization is not there, externally a person might take initiation, but spiritual progress would be checked. So Bhaktivedanta Swami was knowing it is difficult for his disciples to keep the vows. But then he was hopeful, because the instructions are extremely powerful. How much ever bad a person can have his past life, but still, if he sticks to the simple rules and regulations of the spiritual master, then he can come out of all the challenges which put impediments in spiritual progress. So Prabhupada was hopeful, but time would tell whether disciples will be able to follow or not. But Prabhupada told, this is no logic that you are telling me, Prabhupada, please don't initiate, they will fall down. Fall down can happen to anybody. It is a war. Spiritual life is a war. And those things which are most dear to us, they become our enemies. They start opposing us. As soon as you sincerely practice Krishna consciousness, first of all, our mind and body will become our enemy. Body will not support. Body will tell you sleep for some more time. Why you are getting up in Brahm Muhurta in the morning? Body will tell you, let us smoke some cigarette. Let us have some some bhoga which is not offered to Krishna. Let us enjoy the taste. Eyes will tell, let me watch the form of other gender. Let me watch some videos. And the genitals, they will put a lot of trouble. And the mind will put a lot of trouble. So many bad impressions of the past. And so many speculations. So many philosophies we have heard. So much doubt will come in the mind. So mind, our body becomes our first enemy. And then sometimes if family is not educated, the family does not understand, oh, you will become Baba, you will do this thing, what will happen? This is not the age to do, and there is again so much of impediment. So it is like a war. It is not easy because people generally don't understand spiritual life. So generally people are in the bodily concept of life no more than animals. Unless a person understands I am not the body, Vedas tell Dvipad Pashu, animal walking on 2 feet. Animal is working out to satisfy mind and body. We are working out to satisfy mind and body. What is the difference? Sensual gratification. Platform is same. So in this war, just like in any war, there are some losses. So Srila Prabhupada was expecting that some of the soldiers who are weak will fall down. Any soldier can die. The strongest soldiers also lose their life on the battlefield. So some losses can happen. But it does not mean that we stop fighting. It does not mean that I should not initiate. So that fall down can happen to anyone, but spiritual master has to take the risk to train the disciples. And if the disciple falls down, spiritual master again keeps on trying, as long as the disciple holds on to the feet of spiritual master. Aside from Vedic standards, even by the standard of Swamiji's New York disciples, the devotees in San Francisco were not very strict. Some continued going to the donut shop. They were very fond of eating donuts. Eating food without offering it to Krishna, and eating forbidden things like chocolate and commercial ice cream. Some even indulged in after Kirtan cigarette breaks right outside the temple door. Some got initiated without knowing precisely what they had agreed to practice. But Prabhupada was very hopeful. Never mind. They are smoking after Kirtan, they are eating bhoga, but because they have picked up Krishna consciousness in their life, just as the sun rises, all these things are driven away. So everybody is unqualified in Kali Yuga to make any progress, but everybody is qualified at the same time by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his pure devotees. So by their mercy, anybody who agrees to follow the simple process can more than compensate for all the shortcomings that we all have in our lives. So Srila Prabhupada neglected all these shortcomings because he was very hopeful, seeing that they have picked up chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The morning and evening Kirtans had already made the Radha Krishna temple popular in Haight-Ashbury. But when the devotees began serving daily free lunch, temple became integral part of the community. Swamiji told his disciples simply to cook and distribute prasadam. That would be their only activity during the day. In the morning they would cook, and at noon they would feed everyone who came, sometimes 150, 200 hippies from the streets of Haight-Ashbury. So as soon as they get up, even before the Mangala Aarti, the devotees would start cooking something, oatmeal, some breakfast, and then the hippies who have not slept entire night after night out to get relief from the drugs, they would come to the temple, and then they will have the breakfast. And the crowd was much bigger in the lunch time. There was much public concern about the huge influx of youth in San Francisco, a situation that was creating an almost uncontrollable social problem. So just imagine if the young generation, which is supposed to take the country to next level, which is the strength of the country, the children are liability, old people are liability, and the young people are assets. They work for the country, increase the economy and everything. They are the contributors. And if the young people, they are becoming hippies, so US was very much worried. So it was a huge social problem. And they were perplexed what to do. Our young generation is leading this life of disgust. Police and social welfare workers were worried about health problems and poor living conditions, especially in the Haight-Ashbury. Some middle-class people feared a complete hippie takeover. The local authorities welcomed the service offered by Swami Bhaktivedanta's temple, and when civic leaders in Haight-Ashbury talked of forming a council to deal with the crisis, they requested Swami Bhaktivedanta to take part. As Allen Ginsberg, if you remember, he had advised in the ballroom. So the morning kirtans are very good. Those who want to come back and come to normal consciousness, you can take part in this morning kirtan. Allen himself sometimes dropped by in the morning with acquaintances with whom he had stayed up all night. But on occasion, the re-entries would come flying in out of control for crash landings in the middle of the night. One morning at 2 a.m., the boys sleeping in the storefront were awakened by a pounding at the door, screaming, and police lights. When they opened the door, a young hippie with wild red hair and beard plunged in crying, "Oh Krishna, Krishna, oh help me! Oh don't let them get me! Oh for God's sake, help!" A policeman stuck his head in the door and smiled. "We decided to bring him here," he said, "because we thought maybe you guys could help him." So police were not able to deal with the hippies and they would bring them in the middle of the night and throw them in the temple. You please deal with these people. We cannot tackle them. "I am not comfortable in this body," the boy screamed as the policeman shut the door. So police went off, leaving the boy there. The boy began chanting furiously and turned white, sweating profusely in terror. Swamiji's boy spent the rest of early morning consoling him and chanting with him until the Swami came down for kirtan and class. The devotees often sent distressed young people to Swamiji with their problems, and they allowed almost anyone to see Swamiji and take up his valuable time. While walking around San Francisco, Ravindra Swarup, one of the devotees, once met a man who claimed to have seen people from Mars in his tent when he had been stationed in Vietnam. The man, who had just been discharged from an army hospital, said that the Martians had talked to him. Ravindra Swarup told him about Swamiji's book Easy Journey to Other Planets, which verified the idea of life on other planets, and he suggested that the Swami could probably tell him more about the people from Mars. So the man visited Swami up in his apartment. "Yes," the Swamiji answered, "there are Martians." So the disciples were also very new. They were not knowing which person to allow, which person not to allow. This person is out of hospital and he's talking of weird things. They are sending them to Prabhupada. So Prabhupada had to deal with all these crazy people. Gradually, however, Swamiji's followers became more considerate of their spiritual master and began protecting him from the persons they thought might be undesirable. One such undesirable was Rabbit, perhaps dirtiest hippie in the Haight-Ashbury. Rabbit's hair was always disheveled, dirty, and even filled with lice. His clothes were ragged and filthy, and his dirt-caked body stank. He wanted to meet the Swami, but the devotees refused, not wanting to defile Swamiji's room with Rabbit's nasty, stinking presence. One night after the lecture, however, Rabbit waited outside the temple door. As Swamiji approached, Rabbit asked, "May I come up and see you?" Swamiji agreed. As for challengers, almost every night someone would come to argue with Swamiji. One man came regularly with prepared arguments from a philosophy book, from which he would read aloud. Swamiji would defeat him, and the man would go home, prepare another argument, and come back again with his book. One night after the man had presented his challenge, Swamiji simply looked at him without bothering to reply. Swamiji's neglect was another defeat for the man, who got up and left. Israel, like Rabbit, was another well-known Haight-Ashbury character. He had a long ponytail and often played the trumpet during kirtan. After one of Swamiji's evening lectures, Israel challenged, "This chanting may be nice, but what will it do for the world? What will it do for humanity?" Swamiji replied, "Are you not in the world? If you like it, why will not others like it? So you chant loudly." A mustached man standing at the back of the room asked, "Are you Allen Ginsberg's guru?" So many of the devotees knew that the question was difficult to answer. He cannot tell I'm Allen Ginsberg's guru because he was into all kind of wrong things, into drugs, into nakedness, into all other hippie stuff. At the same time, he was supporting the movement. So if Swamiji tells I'm not Allen Ginsberg's guru, then again it's a catch. To devotees, the whole exchange became transcendental due to Swamiji's reply. Many of the devotees knew that the question was loaded and to answer that either yes or no would be difficult, but Swamiji very expertly replied, "I am nobody's guru, I am everybody's servant." Swamiji had not simply given a clever response, he had answered out of a deep natural humility. So Prabhupada, just like some people, they outsmart the questioner. So this was not Swamiji's mood to bring him down, or in a condescending way he was not answering. So that is the expertise of a pure devotee who gets direct direction from Krishna seated within the heart, how to act in any situation. So Swamiji gave a factual answer what a pure devotee is feeling. So there are various stages in spiritual life, and the highest stage in Varnashrama system is sannyas, and in sannyas also there are 4 levels. So when a person has just taken sannyas, he might still not be completely dependent on Krishna. So that is called kutichak. So these kind of sannyasis, they live outside the city in a kuti, in a small cottage. But family members can come and give them food, prasadam. But they do not indulge in family affairs, do not meet with family. But prasadam they can accept from family. And then when they become more advanced, bahudak, then they stop accepting food from home. And they start begging from different people. Bahudak, from many places they beg little food. And when they become further advanced by practicing such dependence on Krishna, they become parivrajak, means they keep on traveling. And they travel, and because now they are advanced in knowledge, they know how Krishna is maintaining me. They have realizations. So those realizations they share with others. And these parivrajaks usually accept disciples. However, by preaching, by traveling and preaching, sannyasi advances further and he becomes a paramhansa. Paramhansa means he is completely free now from the clutches of nature. No laws of nature act upon such devotees, and their life becomes perfect. And in the topmost stage of Varnashrama system, Paramhansa, a liberated soul, what is his consciousness? He thinks, I am the most fallen person. Everybody is serving Krishna, and I am the most fallen, so I am servant of everybody. So then usually such Paramahansas do not preach. So we think bossing over is a good consciousness. And that is what we are doing. This is totally wrong education that we have got, wrong upbringing. It is upbringing of envy. So when you love somebody, you would not like to boss over, isn't it? But here everybody wants to boss over. People should follow me. I should become most rich, most famous. But such a mentality always gives trouble to people because everyone wants to become boss. There is competition. Somebody doesn't listen to you, either your colleague or family member, then there are clashes. So actually, if you want a peaceful society, the solution is not the boss consciousness, but the servant consciousness. Das, das, dasanu, das. I am servant of Krishna. So Paramahansa thinks everybody is engaged in service of Krishna, only I am not engaged. So thus these devotees do not preach because they think everybody is better than me. But sometimes, out of compassion for the other souls, they leave this consciousness. So this consciousness is most enjoyable. The greatest pleasure that a person can enjoy is not in the boss consciousness, but in servant consciousness. But the devotees leave this consciousness out of compassion for the suffering living entities. Under direction of Krishna, they come out and they try to find fault and try to correct them so that the devotees can, their disciples can advance in spiritual life. So fault finding gives a lot of trouble, but they take the trouble out of compassion. So such is the situation with Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj and other great acharyas in the Sampradaya. They are all Paramahansas, but they act just like a professor could be very educated, but he can also come down and teach in primary classes. So it is not as his level, but out of compassion, when he sees there is nobody to educate these children, so he acts in a capacity which is much, much lower to his status. So this is the situation of Srila Prabhupada. Although he is a Paramahansa, that is why we call him Paramhans Parivrajak. He is traveling and preaching, although he is Paramahansa. He has come down a level out of great compassion. So such Paramahansa, we see how he tackles very nicely. It was not a condescending tone, but it was fact what he was feeling. I am nobody's guru. I am everybody's servant. So he stated fact, and at the same time, the matter got resolved. So thus many times devotees were planning ways and means how to preach, what to speak in a particular circumstance so that a person can get convinced. So Prabhupada told them, you don't try to make this artificial setup. Simply try to make a person sincere, because then if a person is sincere, God seated in the heart will dictate what to speak first and next. So this is how preaching should be done. It's a dynamic, spontaneous process. One morning, a couple attended the lecture, a woman carrying a child and a man wearing a backpack. During the question and answer period, the man asked, "What about my mind?" Swamiji gave him philosophical replies, but the man kept repeating, "What about my mind? What about my mind?" With a pleading, compassionate look, Swamiji said, "I have no other medicine. Please chant this Hare Krishna. I have no other explanation. I have no other answer." But the man kept talking about his mind. Finally, one of the women devotees interrupted and said, "Just do what he says, just try it." And Swamiji picked up his kartals and began kirtan. One evening, a boy burst into a lecture. So, such kind of crazy people were there, stopping in between, shouting, arguing, debating with Swamiji. So, one evening, a boy burst into a lecture exclaiming that a riot was gathering on the Hyde Street. The Swami should come immediately, address the crowd, and calm everyone down. Mukunda explained that it wasn't necessary for Swamiji to go, others could help. The boy just stared at Swamiji as if giving an ultimatum. Unless Swamiji came immediately, there would be a riot and Swamiji would be to blame. Swamiji spoke as if preparing to do what the boy wanted. "Yes, I am prepared," Swamiji gave the reply. But nobody went and there was no riot. Usually during the kirtan, at least one dancer would carry on in a narcissistic, egoistic way, occasionally becoming lewd to the point where Swamiji would ask the person to stop. In every kirtan, at least one person will act in such a strange way. One evening before Swamiji had come down from his apartment, a girl in a miniskirt began writhing and gyrating in the temple during kirtan. When one of the devotees went upstairs and told Swamiji, he replied, "That's all right. Let her use her energy for Krishna. I am coming soon and I will see for myself." So Krishna is so merciful. So person is doing any kind of activity, Krishna takes it as dance. He is doing Sankirtan before me. So Krishna is very merciful. If a person comes and falls down before the deity, stumbles upon anything, Krishna gives the benefit of offering respects. He or she is doing dandavats. So Prabhupada would tell, just imagine if you consciously do Sankirtan, chant and hear Hare Krishna, what is the result? Putana wanted to kill Krishna by smearing her breasts with poison. But Krishna took the positive side. At least she desired to give me milk. And after killing Putana, Putana got elevated to the position of Krishna's mother, like Yashoda Mai in Golok Vrindavan. So just see, this is called God. Somebody is coming to kill you. Can you accept that woman as your mother? It is unimaginable. This is Krishna's character. And any person who associates with Krishna by constantly chanting the name of Krishna automatically gets all such good qualities, just like an iron rod in fire. So people do not know. They are making policies of making children morally upright and all such things. And by doing all this education, what happens? They occupy top posts, and 80% people minimum on top posts are corrupt. So these moral values can only be installed in society by Krishna consciousness. Krishna is supremely moral person. Somebody kicks Krishna on his chest, Krishna massages the feet of that person like Bhrigu Muni. And if somebody is coming to kill, Krishna takes the positive side. At least she desired to feed me milk. And she gave her the position of mother. So just see, this is Krishna. So thus there is no need to endeavor separately for building positive qualities, moral qualities, all the goodness. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarvair gunay tatra samasate suraha. All the good qualities get manifest in the devotee by Krishna consciousness. So we just have to keep constant association with Krishna, and then everything good will develop. When Swamiji arrived and started another kirtan, the girl who was very skinny again began to wriggle and gyrate. Swamiji opened his eyes and saw her. He frowned and glanced at some of his disciples, indicating his displeasure. Taking the girl aside, one of the women escorted her out. A few minutes later, the girl returned wearing slacks and dancing in a more reserved style. Swamiji was sitting on his dais, lecturing to a full house, when a fat girl who had been sitting on the window seat suddenly stood up and began shouting at him. "Are you just going to sit there?" she yelled. "What are you going to do now? Come on! Aren't you going to say something? What are you going to do? Who are you?" Her action was so sudden and her speech so violent that no one in the temple responded. However, unangered, Swamiji sat very quietly. He appeared hurt. Only the devotees sitting closest to him heard him say softly, as if to himself. Prabhupada said, "It is the darkest of darkness." So Prabhupada on one side would become very angry if somebody tells anything about Krishna. Krishna has no form. Krishna is simply an energy. He would become very angry. But if somebody is shouting at Swamiji, then he is completely unangered. But then he was hurt. Just like a well-wisher tries to do good to you and you get abused, then we feel hurt. So Prabhupada had come here to deliver these people and they are shouting at him. So Prabhupada told very softly, only those people who are sitting close to him. Prabhupada told, "It is darkest of all the dark regions." But still Prabhupada was preaching, knowing that it is the most darkest, most tamasic place. Still Prabhupada was having very strong faith in the holy name. That holy name will take them out. So this is not the end. Another night, while Swamiji was lecturing, a boy came up and sat on the dais beside him. The boy faced out toward the audience and interrupted Swamiji. "I would like to say something now." Swamiji politely said, "Wait until after the class. Then we have questions." The boy waited for a few minutes, still sitting on the dais, and Swamiji continued to lecture. But again the boy interrupted, "I got something to say. I want to say what I have to say now." The devotees in the audience looked up astonished, thinking that Swamiji would handle the matter and not wanting to cause a disturbance. None of them did anything. They simply sat while the boy began talking incoherently. They are all drugs. He has gone sat on the same dais with Swamiji, talking gibberish. Then Swamiji picked up his kartals. "All right, let us have kirtan." The boy sat in the same place throughout the kirtan, looking crazily, sometimes menacingly at Swamiji. After half an hour, the kirtan stopped. And as was the custom, prasadam distribution, Swamiji cut the apple into small pieces. Then he placed the knife and a piece of apple in his right hand, and he held his hand out to the boy. There was piece of apple and knife, both in the same hand. The boy looked at Swamiji, then down at the apple and knife. The room became silent. Swamiji sat motionless, smiling slightly at the boy. After a long, tense moment, the boy reached out. A sigh rose from the audience as the boy chose the piece of apple from Swamiji's upper hand. Haridas recollects, "I used to watch how Swamiji would handle things. It wasn't easy. To me, that was the real test of his powers and understanding. How to handle these people, not alienate or antagonize or stir them up to create more trouble. So these are crazy people, they would go even more crazy. He would turn their energy so that before they knew it, they were calm, like when you pat a baby and it stops crying. Swamiji had a way of doing that with words, with the intonation of his voice, with his patience to let them carry on for a certain period of time. Let them work it out, act it out even. I guess he realized that the devotees just couldn't say, 'Listen, when you come to the temple, you can't behave in this way.' Of course, that was not possible. They would just invite people, and this was the level of people. It was a delicate situation. Often someone would say, 'I am God.' They would get an insight or hallucination from their drugs. They would try to steal the spotlight. They wanted to be heard, and you could feel an anger against the Swami from people like that. Sometimes they would speak inspired and poetic for a while, but they couldn't sustain it, and their speech would become gibberish. And the Swami was not one to simply pacify people. He wasn't going to coddle them. At the same time, he was straightforward, Srila Prabhupada. He would say, 'What do you mean? If you are God, then you have to be all-knowing. You have to have the attributes of God. Are you omniscient and omnipotent? He would then name all the characteristics that one would have to be an avatar or God. He would rationally prove the person wrong. He had superior knowledge and would rationally explain to them, if you are God, can you do this? Do you have this power? Sometimes people would take it as a challenge and would try to have a verbal battle with the Swami. The audience's attention would then swing to the disturbing individual, the person who was grabbing the spotlight. Sometimes it was very difficult. I used to sit there and wonder, how is he going to handle this guy? This one is really a problem. But Swamiji was hard to defeat. Even if he couldn't convince the person, he convinced the other people in the crowd so that the energy of the room would change and would tend to quiet the person. Swamiji would win the audience by showing them that this person didn't know what he was talking about. And the person would feel the vibrations of the room change, that the audience was no longer listening or believing his words. And so the person would shut up. So Swamiji would remove the audience rather than the person. He would do it without crushing the person. He would do it by superior intelligence but also with a lot of compassion. When I saw him do these things, then I realized he was a great teacher, an extraordinary person. He had the sensitivity not to injure a person physically or emotionally, so that when the person sat down and shut up, he wouldn't be doing it in defeat or anger. He wouldn't be hurt. He would just be outwitted by the Swami. So this was Prabhupada's knack. Even the most hot-headed people, craziest of the hippies, without hurting them emotionally, physically, Prabhupada would quieten them and they would sit down. We shall go for a walk at 6:30. Swamiji said one morning, you can drive me to the park. So Prabhupada regularly had morning walks. So here also Prabhupada told them, you drive me to the park, we'll have walk tomorrow 6:30. Several devotees accompanied him to the Golden Gate Park's Stowe Lake. They knew the park well and led Swamiji on a scenic walk around the lake over a bridge through the forest-enclosed pass and across a small rivulet, hoping to please him with the nature's beauty. So this is the beauty of a pure devotee. Whatever a pure devotee sees, he is able to see Krishna everywhere and connect everything with Krishna. Whatever Swamiji saw, he saw through the eye of scripture. And his comments on the most ordinary things were full of transcendental instruction. As he walked, he reflected loud. Those who want to see the God must first have the qualifications to see God. They must be purified, and he gave the example, just like now you see cloud is covering the sun. And since the cloud is covering the sun, people tell that the sun is not out, but sun is there. You are covered by the cloud. In a similar fashion, we have to remove this covering of cloud from us, and then we will be able to see God. Like tour guides, the boys led Swamiji to a more picturesque areas. They came upon swans gliding on the lake. Srimad Bhagavatam, Swamiji said, compares devotees to swans and literature about Lord Krishna to be beautiful, clear lakes. So as soon as he sees swans, a materialist may appreciate their beauty or the clear waters of the lake, but Prabhupada immediately remembers Bhagavatam. And what does he remember in Bhagavatam? The verse, Na yat chitrapradash harer yasho. So Srimad Bhagavatam mentions the activities of crows and swans. Crows are attracted by dirty stuff and swans by clear waters. In a similar fashion, any of these mundane news and mundane talks do not attract the attention of devotees. So ordinary person may be very much fascinated. Oh, this country has defeated another country in war, and or defeated this country in sports or politics or any other thing. But a devotee takes interest in these things as much as is required to keep the body and soul together, because it's just a temporary setup, a drama or a dream world. Dream in the sense it exists, but it's temporary. Like this, we have dreamt many lives over. In previous life also, we would have had a lot of tension, we would have worked very hard to attain that position, and everything is lost now. So that is why, despite focusing one's attention on temporary things, devotees focus always their attention on the literatures describing God. So thus the devotees are compared to swans, and materialists take interest in such things in which there is no connection with God. The devotees delighted in bringing Swamiji to Rhododendron Glen. So it's kind of fauna. It's, uh, beg your pardon, flora. Its big bushes completely covered with white and pink flowers, and they felt privileged to see Krishna through the Swami's eyes. The next morning, when Swamiji again wanted to go to the park, more devotees wanted to come. So they were very fascinated how Srila Prabhupada on morning walk, he connects everything to Krishna. So more devotees joined the next day. Swamiji stopped beneath a large tree and pointed to some bird droppings on the ground. So Srila Prabhupada asked his disciples, one of the disciples, you see these, what is there on the ground? And they were bird droppings, nothing very special. So disciple was trying to figure out what code is hidden in this, in the bird droppings, what to speak. Swamiji's face was serious. The boy blushed. I don't know what it means. Swamiji remained thoughtful, waiting for an explanation. The devotees gathered around him, looking intently down at the bird droppings. The boy thought Swamiji might be expecting him to decipher some hidden meaning in the pattern of the droppings. The way people read the future, something like that. He felt he should say something, so he told, it's the excreta, the defecations of birds. Swamiji smiled and turned towards others for an answer. They were silent. Nobody could figure out what we can figure out of bird droppings. It means, said Swamiji, that these birds have lived in the same tree for more than 2 weeks. He laughed. Even the birds are attached to their apartments. So how Srila Prabhupada was everywhere seeing the practical application of Srimad Bhagavatam, the scriptures. So Prabhupada told, by looking at the droppings, you can make out that the birds have been staying here for more than 2 weeks. It means even the birds are attached to their homes, their quarters. So it is this attachment which does not let us advance in spiritual life. Srila Prabhupada tells a very nice story that once a marriage party was supposed to reach the venue and they are supposed to cross a river. They thought, well, it'll take quite some time. So why spend the daytime in that? Let us travel at night. So they went at night and they sat on the boat and they told the boatman, please take us to this place. And the boatman agreed, started rowing the boat. And they thought, let us sleep in the boat and we will reach tomorrow when we wake up to our destination. And they took a sound sleep and they wake up next morning. To their utter surprise, they are there in the same way. And the boatman also was asleep. And then they tell, what is this? We are in the same place. What happened? Did you not row the boat at night? So he told, no, I was rowing the boat entire night. I am also surprised why we are here. And then they noticed they forgot to lift the anchor. So the boat was going around in circles around the anchor. So this is called material attachment. So that is why Srila Prabhupada told why Indians did not pick up Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada was trying very hard. From 1944, he was preaching. He was publishing Back to Godhead. He was distributing, going door to door and to various government offices, to the people who would come to tea stalls. Everywhere Prabhupada was trying to preach. He established League of Devotees in Jhansi, but people were not able to pick up Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada told, why? Indians don't have these bad habits. Indians know that this is sinful. But there is one great impediment. And although you have all these bad habits, these hippies are living in the darkest of the most dark regions of this world. But they have one qualification, and that is they do not have family attachment. So why this entire Bhagavad Gita is spoken? Just because of family attachment. Arjuna was having family attachment. These are my members, family members on the other side. How can I kill them, Krishna? Let them rule. I will live as a mendicant begging. So this attachment is very strong, especially family attachment. It keeps a person in this world and it is illusory because the same family person, when he or she comes in a different body, so it is told, as we have been discussing, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram. Our next birth depends upon our consciousness at the time of death. So if a person is very much attached to his house, and people do get attached to house, that is why the acharyas still sometimes do not own a house, because then attachment is very, very strong. So somebody is attached to one's house, but the qualification is not there to get a human body. Then the person may take birth as a dog in that house or as a snake in that house. And eventually the family members may kill that snake or as a cockroach in that house. And the same family member would be killing his father in a different body. This is called family hallucination. There is no family actually. Bhagavatam describes this family is just like straws. One wave comes in the ocean and the straws they come together only to get separated at the next wave. Some random passengers they assemble together in a train coach never to meet again. So that is the way the souls assemble in different forms. They may never take that form again and they get attached to these external dresses thinking this dress is a person. Never seen, not knowing about their identity or the identity of what they are thinking as their family member. It is told the enemy takes birth as son of his enemy in the next life. Why? Because it was his strong desire and he was always thinking about the enemy. So he had two intentions. One was to give harm to other person, hurt the other person, and another was because he was thinking of other person, enemy. Enemies are always there in the mind. So that is why, because he was thinking of the other person, he would take birth as his relative and he would take birth as his son, because nobody can give greater pain than the family members. And the son would do such activity that father would always remain in pain, or the son would die early, Prabhupada explains. And the father would, so actually that was enemy. He came and he died early so that pain could be given to his enemy. So person will be taking care of his enemies, and that has actually happened in history. So Kansa was killing the brothers of Krishna, and they were actually his own sons in previous life. So just see, his own sons of previous life he was killing in the next life. So this is how laws of nature bewilder us. Actually, there is no father, no mother, no family member. These are just this temporary setup which is going on in the bodily concept of life. However, those people who are not realized on this platform, so they are supposed to carry on the duties. If they don't do duties nicely, hell is assured. So person has to behave very responsibly, take care of all the duties very nicely. And the most important duty is to deliver our family members from the clutches of death. And this a person can only do when he realizes this family is but a drama, just some dresses outside. So what does it mean? Should we leave our family? No, leaving or no leaving depends upon whether it is required for the service of Krishna. But still, if a person is not so elevated that he can leave his family for the service of Krishna, person can stay with the family. In Kali Yuga, that is a recommendation for general people. But understand, do not get overly attached to family. Understand it is just a role I have to play. So just like you work very hard for your companies, but as soon as there is better opportunity, we leave the company. So we take it as a matter of duty, not as a matter of strong attachment. I cannot leave this company. No, even though other company is offering me 5 times salary, I will not leave. No. So in a similar fashion, as a matter of duty, we should take care of our responsibilities very nicely, keeping the prime responsibility in mind that I have to deliver them from the clutches of death. And that can only happen when we realize we are not the body and we have no such attachments. So thus Prabhupada explained how this attachment is present in birds also, attachment to home, attachment to house, that they are also not willing to leave this place. So thus this pulling up anchor is very important. So because of this anchor, Indians could not pick up Krishna consciousness. And Westerners, despite all their shortcomings, they did not have this family attachment. Thus they could advance and overcome all the shortcomings. So thus it is very, very important to overcome, to lift this anchor. This is the 10th offense against chanting the holy names of Krishna, to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this subject matter. So it is very important to give up the attachments, and then when a person chants, there is very soon the desired result. So such were the wonderful pastimes. And then Swamiji, when he was walking in the park, he was shown another very great area similar to Tompkins Square Park. And disciples told Prabhupada, can we? Prabhupada told, yes, we should do Kirtan here also. And this was even more successful than the Tompkins Square Park. And Srila Prabhupada also would come sometimes. He would play mridanga, and all the people would hold hands, dance around him. In this way, Prabhupada, the Hare Krishna, became very, very famous in San Francisco. And Prabhupada established two very nice centers. But San Francisco became little more advanced from New York because one very special incident happened here. And what was the incident? The Lord of the Universe appeared in San Francisco. How he appeared, what are the wonderful pastimes, how Srila Prabhupada engaged the disciples in his seva, all these pastimes we will understand tomorrow. So now is the time for winner. Let's see who has won. Many congratulations to Jyoti Takne. So the comments which I've got from devotees is she is regular in writing realization, and she has also shared PDF of Srila Prabhupada book with many people and hopes to contribute more in the future. Thank you very much for your amazing service. So book distribution Prabhupada took as his primary agenda because that is Prabhupada's desire. Please distribute books. His Guru Maharaj ordered him to do that, and Prabhupada told, so please help me in my mission. So Prabhupada becomes greatly pleased when we distribute Prabhupada books. So especially offline book distribution is very effective because online if we share, then a person may read, but then he will never be able to take it again. But offline if we keep, then always it occupies a space, and if the book is big, it stays for generations. And many times we come across devotees, yes, my father or grandfather had Bhagavad Gita. So grandfather could not follow much, father could not, but the son actually became very good devotee. But nevertheless, online is also very powerful media. Immediately the book goes, and many people have become wonderful devotees by online distribution also. So please keep sharing online, offline as much as possible. Thank you so much for being regular in writing. This will help you a great deal in spiritual realization. So I hope you have communicated your address so that we can send you your transcendental gift. I request other devotees also, you can please keep writing your realizations, and especially if you write in the comment box, that will help anybody who visits this video in future to have a revision of what they have heard. Because after hearing, now if we ask what all points we have done, it would be difficult for us to recollect all the points. But all these points individually, they can read in the comments as well. And the post has a greater share, so more people can come to know about Srila Prabhupada glories. So please try to like this also, try to share this video as well. We'll meet tomorrow again. Hare Krishna.